secure supply chain solutions and services to assure quality and enable responsible sourcing practices for textile customers around the world. She is also the lead business manager for their multinational partners and clients, including Reliance Industries, Himmat Singha, Ganesh Ecosphere, Louis Dreyfus Company, Loftex, Nisha Printing Company, Solvay, and many other Fortune 500 companies. Ladies and gentlemen, for real world knowledge in traceability, I now hand over to Maylin. Over to you, Maylin.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to present, and thank you everyone for your time today. So the presentation today will be an introduction to the platform that we call CertainT. As we know, in the last 18 months, life has changed significantly, with many global supply chains disrupted and many complexities faced by brands and manufacturers. And so there is a lot of uncertainty in supply chains and risk. So our company, Applied DNA Sciences, created a platform that we call CertainT. And the T represents everything that's important to secure and assure your brand. And that means traceability, transparency, and trust. And how do we get there? So we designed this platform to cover a wide range of different materials in the textile industry. These materials include recycled polyester, wool, leather, cotton, hemp, viscose, thread, down and feather, as well as specialty coatings that are used as finishes on textile fabrics. Applied DNA Sciences has been in the area of secure supply chain for over a decade. Some of the global applications that we have commercialized include cotton, recycled polyester, the protection and security around cash, valuables, as well as automotive aftermarket parts. We also have been validated and are considered the lead technology by the Department of Defense here in the US for microcircuits, as well as other materials in the supply chain. More recently, we have been able to tag powders and active ingredients for the pharmaceutical industry. As you can see, we have been tagging dietary supplements, those are the coatings that go onto tablets. And the main point is that differentiates us from other technologies is that our platform has been court tested, meaning that we have worked with law enforcement and security around the world to secure convictions related to crimes and linking those crimes to criminals that have committed them. So over the past decade, this has resulted in 147 criminal convictions that result in 720 sentence years. So this is a platform that has been fully vetted, proven, and trusted amongst global security and law enforcement. Some of our partnerships, as you will see here, are with stellar companies and retailers. We work within the entire supply chain. So there is lots of different initiatives and programs happening and have been happening in the last decade. And so now is the time to think about how to secure your own brand and how to develop a very traceable, sustainable solution if you have intellectual property or important trade secrets within your company that you would like to protect in the long term. So onto the technology, and really how do you prove and can you prove that your product represents your brand and within a secure supply chain? We developed a system that uses molecular tags, and we are often asked what a molecular tag is. It's a synthetic molecule, and this synthetic molecule is very small. It is made at parts per billion, which means that you can really apply this molecule onto a wide quantity of material. So therefore, it can be more cost-effective and affordable to apply this molecule in a wide range of materials. This molecule is designed so that it can represent your brand. It could also represent a specific date, time, and place. It could also represent sustainable practices that happen at that place. So one tag actually can represent multiple claims. And so the minute we tag your product, that ensures that you have security and peace of mind, that you have a way to verify a genuine product, should you need to do that. This tag also can be applied not only in raw materials, but can be put onto the product itself or onto primary, secondary, or tertiary packaging. And I could talk a little bit about that in the Q&A. We use this simple way to think about tagging, that it's real, and it's real because it's robust. It cannot be copied or tampered with. It's effective and environmentally friendly. Authentication is a big part of this platform. It's all about testing using the PCR-based technology that we have developed. It is a lock and key system. So people ask, if my tag is out there, could somebody try to copy it? But the only way you can detect the tag is if you actually have a specific kit to detect a specific tag. So I thought we would review with you today cotton, because we're right in the middle of tagging cotton here in the US and in Egypt and other places. And knowing your cotton has become a very hot topic in the world of textiles. And the reason is that recently there have been concerns about the potential of forced labor in cotton supply chains. Countries like the US, UK, Australia, and other countries have also issued directives and policies and regulations related to the prevention of forced labor entering into products like cotton, viscose, tomatoes even. There are a lot of different materials that are subject to the use of human trafficking, forced labor, adult labor that's forced in the supply chain. So knowing your cotton is a very important part of the conversation and the actions that are being considered or taken during this time. And part of the whole challenge is to get transparency in the supply chain. How do you know visibly who the actors are in the supply chain? Are they known? Do you know that the source of the fiber is also linked to the yarn, to the gray fabric, to the finished fabric, and ultimately to the finished product? So linkage of physical samples, not paper trail or paper documentation, but the linkage of the physical samples and the testing of the physical samples is how you can get to traceable product. And finally, having a not one size fits all approach, but having a layered approach that incorporates paper documentation, physical traceability, digital tracking is a way to establish trust in the supply chain. And trust is such an invaluable aspect to everything that we do in business. It is the foundation for the partners we choose, the materials that we incorporate into the product. And all of these things represent brand and trust. And finally, before I go into the details of our system, that knowing your cotton should complement paper documentation and transaction certificates. In fact, we consider it an essential complement to those systems that are already in place. So the approach for cotton is multi-layered, as I indicated. And part of that has to do with the fact that there are different cottons with different types, different varietals, different species. They're grown in different regions. There are a lot of things related to what we call the cotton provenance of the material. So we incorporate molecular tagging, and I will talk about that in a few minutes, which is the specific tag that we apply onto the cotton fiber itself. We also analyze the cotton before we tag it, and we call that genotyping. And we are also working on what we call next generation sequencing. And that is the genetic or the genetics of the cotton itself. And finally, we utilize a new technology called stable isotopes. And that can also provide more information about the country of origin or geography of where the cotton comes from. So to summarize, we ask some of these questions: what type of cotton it is, where it is grown, is it grown sustainably, does it come from a place that does not use forced labor or child labor. And the platform is, as you would expect, relates to the letter T in CertainT, which is tag, test, and track. And it's about collecting data from all the different aspects of what we do. So we will analyze genetically the cotton feedstock. We'll do the isotopic analysis on the feedstock to make sure it does come from that region. We do a lot of work before we even tag the cotton. So there's a lot of analysis that happens in the cotton supply chain before we even start tagging. We tag at the gin, and show you a little bit of how we do that. And tagging at the gin enables us to ensure that when the cotton is cleaned before it is baled, we can spray the DNA tag onto the cotton before it gets baled and issued a unique bale identification number. There is a need for secure chain of custody and protocol around the collection of cotton, the tagging of it, the sampling of the cotton after it's tagged, and also the transportation and warehousing of the cotton. And so that's one of the things that isn't on the slide, but it is a key ingredient to how we actually secure supply chain and provide scientific proof of what. And then we have a combination of both portable and in-lab authentication systems to enable the secure authentication of the cotton itself. And having a means to actually test on site is relatively new phenomena for DNA testing, but this is a important aspect to how traceability will be more accessible and more timely in the production cycle itself. And then we provide certificates of authentication for samples that we would test, for example, in our India lab or in our US lab. All of this information we provide in a secure portal called our CertainT portal, and all that data could certainly be accessed and then linked to your own databases as well. So on to tagging. This is like a very sophisticated, but actually very easy to use piece of equipment called the DNA transfer system. We developed this about 8 years ago to have a very automated, fully automated system to tag the cotton fiber, to also capture data on the date, time, and location. We also can know exactly the varietal and the type of cotton that we're tagging, who tagged your cotton, to know that they have the highest standards for environmental as well as human welfare compliance. We also ensure there's linkage to a specific bale or bale identification system. And we also work with merchants like Louis Dreyfus to ensure there's strong documentation that relates to the physical authentication. So this system is great for tagging raw fiber. We have not tagged at the spinning locations yet, but that is something that we are looking into in 2022 to see if there's a way to also tag not only at the gin, but possibly at the spinning location. To give you an idea in terms of authentication, these portable units, which we call Signify, are in-field systems. The cost of them are about $9,500 per unit, but that's could be less based on volume and the nature of our partnership with our partners. The average cost for DNA testing is between $10 to $15 per sample US. But again, it's all subject to volume. But you can see that the cost of testing can be more accessible too if you have a integrated secure supply chain. In addition to portable in-field testing systems that we are developing and working on, we also have in-lab forensic testing for cotton. We do genotyping, GMO testing, isotope testing. We have the signature T testing for the tag. We provide full lab reports if required in court, as well as certificates that we issue based on our evaluation and analysis of the data. On the right is a good example of this type of certificate, and we actually photograph every sample, we measure it, we conduct it as if it was a full forensic authentication, should we have to represent this client or a particular product in court. Another use case is recycled polyester. We have a great partnership with two stellar companies in India, Reliance Industries, as well as Ganesha Ecosphere, and as well as other partners around the world. Recycled polyester involves tagging and extruding the DNA into the fiber itself. And we can test this as it just gets spun and woven into a fabric. And then at any stage, actually, within the supply chain, all the way to finished goods. We also have a new system or technology called Beacon that we can apply into various finishes for printing or onto a lubricant, for example, that could be applied onto the surface of a textile material. Beacon enables an optical way to visualize the DNA tagging. And so once the beacon is incorporated with the DNA, for example, if there's any attempt to burn the material, the beacon would still appear if there was anything very damaging to the material itself. So this image shows that even if you heat the cotton swab that has the swab beacon and DNA, you can still recover the beacon after very high heat. And one of the partners that we work with that also has manufacturing in India is American and Eford, or A&E. And we've collaborated with them on a new product called Integrity. And Integrity is an advanced sewing thread that utilizes CertainT platform, incorporating our DNA with the beacon for a quick way to verify the product. The A&E thread or integrity thread is a really good way for secure quality assurance and product authentication. And so the way A&E will be to work with the nominated supplier that's using the thread, that will incorporate the integrity thread in the bill of materials. And then as it gets sewn into the product, there are multiple places to verify. We provide special beacon swabs, as you can see here. The beacon swab does not appear under UV light until there is connection of the swab to the thread. And that involves swabbing the thread. And after 1 or 2 seconds under UV light, the beacon will appear as a bright red signal. This method of authentication using thread is a good way as the first line of defense against counterfeits and diversion. It can also be a quick way for customs, for example, to check in a very easy way as well, if needed. So there's a lot of great ways this thread could be utilized as a way to check products very quickly at very low cost. And then should it be required, a DNA PCR test can be conducted on the thread itself. If there was any question that, say, the beacon wasn't present or any other reasons that would make you suspicious of the product, should it need further validation or testing. And that concludes my presentation. I left a lot of room for questions and answers, so happy to answer them at this point. And I'll stop sharing the presentation now.
Thank you so much for that insightful presentation, Malin.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And yes, we do have questions from interested viewers, and some of them are a bit technical, so to speak. So the first question is, why should brands and retailers choose CertainT for their brand protection?
There are a lot of good reasons for choosing CertainT. I think that number one, there needs to be a means for physical authentication on the product itself. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Outside of a paper trail, there's no other way to secure all of your products. Mm. So CertainT enables you to tag millions or billions of products or raw materials in using one tag. And that can save you a lot of costs if there was a product recall question, a warranty issue. There are a lot of fake returns coming into supply chains. So having a means or multiple tools to verify a product, whether you use DNA or DNA with beacon, just gives the control back to the brand and the manufacturer. Otherwise, there's no physical way to verify the product itself. And that is what has changed in the world, that there's a general understanding, recognition by the supply chain that if they only use blockchain and if they only use a paper trail, they are still at risk of not being able to verify genuine or fake product. So that's number one. Number two, that CertainT is designed to enable flexibility. So if you have, as a brand, have different materials, you work in cotton, you work in recycled polyester, you work in leather, for example, then many brands today are not thinking just one material. So if you're going to choose a technology platform, you need one that can go across multiple materials. And that helps you to have a better relationship with the retailer and the brand, and something that's more secure, because then you can say, well, I work on this platform that utilizes has different solutions to secure the brand. And finally, compared to other technologies, we've been in the business of secure supply chain now for over a decade. most of these new technologies have really only emerged in the last 2 years and have not been proven commercially, have not been validated independently by government agencies or law enforcement, have not been able to demonstrate that those technologies would survive, for example, dark colors. A lot of these lanthanides or rare earth materials have a lot of trouble being authenticated in dark colors, especially black. So in the textile world, you can't just work in white or yellow. You have to be able to work in multiple colors. Secondly, most of these technologies have not gone through court. No one has talked about that issue. And I like to stress that have you not gone through court and been validated, say, by the Department of Defense that we have, you haven't really been put through the rigors of the technology actually being able to survive a lot of different environments. And one example I would say is, and why we work with Reliance, why we work with Himasinka, is that they know that our platform, for example, was subjected to being sent to space, for example. So NASA, for example, was one of the organizations that said, well, will the DNA survive in outer space? And will mold and fungus grow up on the DNA when it goes up there? Will all these weird things happen? And nothing happens. So there's a lot that we bring to the table when clients talk to us, and as we prove out and validate the systems with these companies, then we'll come out and obviously publicly acknowledge our partnerships. So we're very pleased to be working in India. We are a subsidiary. We have a subsidiary in India. We have a lab in India. I have a team of excellent sales team in India. Our commitment to India goes beyond just it's a very strategic part of what we do, because we consider India as very central to textiles historically as well as strategically in the Asia Pacific region. And we have wonderful partnerships, as I indicated, through Himasinka, Reliance, and Ganesha Ecosphere.
Thank you. That because you've answered a lot of questions about how you are unique and different from other companies as well as your strength in South Asia with your offices in Ahmedabad and the rest of India. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you are looking for one product or one package to answer all your traceability needs across fibers and fabrics of different materials, Applied DNA Sciences, they have their footprint in South Asia. You can directly connect with their offices in South Asia to really take this thing forward. I thank Melin for taking time out to present at the Intex South Asia Interactive Business Forum.
Thank you.
And I also thank everyone for attending this seminar. This 4-day series of industry webinars have really set new standards in the exhibition and trade fair industry in terms of relevance, industry depth, industry knowledge. And we look forward to carry this through to Intex South Asia physical shows in the years to come. I thank everyone once again for being here. And thank you, Melin. Goodbye and have a great day, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Melin.